Good morning to everyone present here. Welcome to our webinar on SalesForce with DocuSign. My name is Mukta Ashok and I will be your moderator today. Now before we begin, let's review a few pointers on how we can interact during the webinar. Here you're looking at the attendee interface of GoToWebinar. The viewer window on the left allows you to see everything the presenter will share on their screen, and the control panel at the right is how you can participate in today's event. You may submit any questions or comments in writing during the webinar. This option is located on the left tab. We'll be reviewing them as they come in, and we'll take them up in the Q&A session towards the end. Now also the webinar is being recorded and everyone will receive an email with a link to view a recording of today's event. Finally, I want to ask you to please complete a very short feedback form that will be online. After the webinar, it won't take long and your feedback is very important to us. Now, before we move on to the webinar, I would like to speak a few words about us. We are Suyati Technologies, having an extensive expertise in CRM. This includes cutting-edge customization to suit workflows, development of innovative apps, and seamless migration from other CRMs. And apart from being a SalesForce App Exchange partner, we are also a Microsoft Gold Certified partner and an Actron Premier partner. Now let me introduce you to Srinivas Bhimanapalli, a technical architect at Suyati Technologies. In the past, Srinivas has worked as a design engineer at General Electric's aircraft division. He has also had a stint as a technical manager at Thomson Reuters, where he put his skill to work in finance, particularly investment management. Now Srinivas is currently working on Suyati's book publishing domain and is our expert resource on DocuSign. So I would like to add here that the DocuSign Salesforce integration is right up his alley. So moving on to our social media tags. Please do feel free to post questions, follow us, or even tag us on the #Suyati webinar tag. Walking you very quickly through the agenda of the day. So we'll start off with an introduction to DocuSign, which will be followed with a typical business model where we will be taking a use case of aircraft interior design, which will be followed by workflow implementation, and then Srinivas will take you through installation, configuration, merging of Salesforce data and connecting with DocuSign, and then we will end with speaking about the different domains where we can use DocuSign. So Srinivas, here you go.
Thanks, Mukta. Well, the topic for the day is SalesForce with DocuSign. So we'll be discussing more, or we'll be knowing more about what a DocuSign is, when and where to use, and more importantly, how to use it. And our primarily concentration will be its usage with SalesForce, as Salesforce being one of the largest CRM used across organizations. As Mukta just now said, that we'll be also taking up a business model and try to see where DocuSign can help us in the process. So to start with, so this is a very obvious question, what is a DocuSign? So as per the definition of DocuSign, it provides electronic signature technology for facilitating electronic exchanges of contracts and signed documents between two parties. Well, this is the definition which we got from one of the documentation of DocuSign. So what does it mean? So it primarily says that DocuSign provides or helps companies to better communicate with their customers. So how is that done? So let's take an example. Let us say we have a product-based company where apart from delivering products, it also does a certain sort of customization based on the customer needs, customer requirements. So even though if you take up a book publishing company or a healthcare product, so obviously there will be some customer specific requirements which has to be done on the top of the end product. So usually this kind of customization usually carried out using the paper process or email communications, telephonic configurations, telephonic communications, etc. So DocuSign helps all these communications to happen online and be a part of your application. So we are going to see how it actually is being achieved using DocuSign in our business model as we move ahead. So where can it be used? So typically DocuSign can be used in any industry wherever an agreement with the customer is required. So I mean, it completely eradicates or remove the paper process and brings online. So where can we use it? See, how can we use it? So primarily there are many different ways in which DocuSign can be used. The first being an independent application. Well, it can be used as an isolated application. So the complete process starts with DocuSign and ends with DocuSign. The second one being integration with SalesForce. So this is one option which we will be trying to explore in our further presentation. And it also provides integration with various applications like Outlook, Word, SharePoint, and even Microsoft Dynamics. And there are many other products which we can which are listed out in the DocuSign website. So this is a brief introduction of what a DocuSign is. So now what we are going to do is we are going to take up one business model, and the sample considered over here is an aircraft interior design website. So this primarily deals with customization of the aircraft. So customization in the sense interior designing of the aircraft. As we know, there are many different locations inside an aircraft where a customization is possible or interior design is possible. For example, the carpets, the seat belts or refreshing centers, baggage compartments. So there are many. For every location, there will be certain sort of customization which we can do. And this company, it provides all these customization services in the form of packages and services. So if at all a customer purchases a particular package, so it explains what level of customization is needed at every part of the aircraft. So this is just an example which we have picked up. As I said earlier, it can be correlated to any other business model which follows the pattern. Let's say a customer actually opted for a particular service, and every service, to honor the request, there are certain steps to be followed or certain set of tasks to be performed. For example, the moment a request is received from a customer, it has to be assessed by the technical team. So after assessing, there will be a design proposal for the team, and it will be sent for the customer for his approval. So upon that, a layout definition has to be laid out and a 3D mock-up generation. So this primarily explains to the customer how an aircraft is going to look like after customization. So once author is happy with that, so it goes to the implementation part, that is writing out this technical specification and subsequent implementation and a completion follow-up. So these are a set of tasks which are related for aircraft industry, but we can correlate a similar set of tasks or activities for different industry. If we observe closely, for example, task number 2 and 4, that is design proposal and 3D mock-up generation. So these are something which we need a customer signed agreement. In the sense, we need customer approval for that. So earlier, all this communication used to happen through emails or through telephonic conversations. So DocuSign can help us to get and signed agreements online and be a part of the application. So coming to the implementation perspective, so the discussions whichever we just now had are being put out in this particular chart diagram. So it explains how a user can interact with a company. So the primarily basically two ways. The first thing is that he can visit the company's website and have a look at the packages and services that are available, and he can choose the package or service whichever fit his requirement. And a second option, if at all the customer is not comfortable using internet or finding it difficult to see which package meets his requirements, he can always call up the help desk, which those guys will be able to help identify which package or service meets the customer's requirements. So at the end of this discussion, ultimately we are going to place an order from the customer's perspective. So to perform any activity or to place an order, it's mandatory that the customer has to register himself in the website. So this is the pattern, or this is the common procedure which has been followed across industries. So after providing mandatory details in the registration form, on clicking of the register button, a new contact record is created in SalesForce. Well, SalesForce is used as a CRM tool over here. So, and a single point of contact for any kind of information. For example, all the records is being stored in SalesForce, even the available packages and services in the website are also being fetched from SalesForce. So we have a single point of contact for any kind of data. So now let's say a customer has registered himself in the website. A new contact record will be created in SalesForce. So now the websites will allow that registered customer to purchase the relevant packages he wants. So looking at the details of each and every package, the customer can go ahead and purchase the package. So this is just a sample screenshot which is provided here. So the prices which are listed out here are not actual. It's just a sample page. So upon purchasing of a package, as a part of the process, so the customer has to provide all the credentials, the credit card details, the security code, and things like that. So upon placing of an order, an email will be sent to the customer explaining what package he has purchased along with the pricing details. So now, what happens at the SalesForce front? A new service order record is created explaining the details or containing the fields, what package he has opted out for or he has purchased. So now if you recheck the complete workflow which we have just now discussed, there is nowhere where we are actually putting an effort to get a signed agreement from the customer to confirm that this is the kind of packages he has purchased and he is accepting the prices quoted over there. And this is exactly where DocuSign comes into picture. So even if we start thinking about the first task of a service, that is assessing the requirement or assessing the customer record, it's important to get a signed agreements from the from the customer. And this is where the DocuSign comes into picture. Since we are integrated our application with SalesForce, we are primarily going to deal with DocuSign with SalesForce. There are certain features, the basic features for using DocuSign is we need to be knowing about how to install it, configure it, and merging of SalesForce data. Well, it's a very common requirement or very obvious requirement that we will have to fetch the SalesForce data onto an agreement dynamically. Example, the kind of service he has purchased, the pricing of it. So all these details have to be a part of an agreement for the customer to sign them. And that comes the merging of SalesForce data. And the last and important feature is SalesForce Connect. So we get to know what all these features are. So coming to the first thing, as far as the installation and configuration goes, the DocuSign is available in SalesForce App Exchange. So the user can go to that and you can always be able to get a latest version of DocuSign over here. So the DocuSign also has provided a very easy installation guide which clearly explains the steps to be followed. And during this process, there are certain configurations which needs to be done. So configuration in the sense to which SalesForce sandbox are we trying to target this DocuSign, or are we trying to integrate this DocuSign into. So these are certain sort of details which will be a part of installation and configuration. So upon installation, there are a lot of SalesForce objects and SalesForce tabs which gets created automatically upon integration into SalesForce. And the important tab to consider is the DocuSign admin. So this primarily helps the administrator to do management tasks on the DocuSign console. Well, the highlighted tab over here, that is the users option. It primarily deals with user management of DocuSign, and the last tab or the last option which is available over there is console. So this option will lead us, it will open up a DocuSign application in a separate window. So this, the screenshot which you are seeing now is exactly the DocuSign application which was integrated in SalesForce. The left hand side, we have multiple options, to perform a lot of activities. The first two headers, the member profile and member options, this primarily deal with the person who has logged in. If at all we want to change any settings for a particular member, so these are the options to look for. And if at all a user is an administrator, the account administrator header will be available for him to change the settings of DocuSign console or DocuSign application, so that will reflect to all the DocuSign users. So coming to merging of SalesForce data, as we have earlier discussed, that it's an important requirement that SalesForce data get dynamically merged into the agreement. So earlier we discussed about price being a part of an agreement, the kind of package the user has purchased as part of an agreement. So this can be achieved by creating a custom tags in DocuSign console or DocuSign application. So what does this mean? So in C# terminology, it's a variable basically. So it gets tied up to a particular SalesForce field. And if we can place this custom tag inside an agreement, upon sending the envelope or the email to the author, to the customer, the data will be fetched from SalesForce. So this screenshot, which is explaining about DocuSign Connect. So this is an important functionality which explains the binding between DocuSign and SalesForce. As you can see, there are various DocuSign objects which are linked up or tied up to the SalesForce. So upon installation of SalesForce, there are few objects like contact, opportunity. So these are these are the objects which by default get the buttons, the DocuSign buttons in their layout. So if at all you want to use them, it's just a matter of modifying the layout and pulling up the respective buttons onto your layout. But it's very important that we end up having a lot of custom buttons inside our application, that is SalesForce application, wherein we want to use DocuSign functionality. And DocuSign does expose a lot of Apex classes or Visualforce pages to accomplish the same functionality as it provides for the default objects. Now, if we can recollect the use case which we have discussed earlier, that is, we have ended up with the service order record lying in our SalesForce and ready to get the signed agreements from the customer. So upon click of that send contract via DocuSign button, an email will be sent to the customer explaining him about the context of this email, and also there will be an option to view the agreements. So on click of the button, the view documents, and agreements will be opened up online in the DocuSign application itself, wherein the customer can read all the terms and conditions, and also there will be placeholders for him to sign the agreement. So there are also options, or the customer can even decline the agreement if at all is not fine with that. So the moment the customer accepts or decline, that particular record will be updated about the status, whether the customer has accepted it or he has declined it. So then the salesperson or Salesforce user can always get in touch with the contact, asking, discussing the reason, and if at all if there needs to be any corrections in the terms and conditions. So the complete workflow which we just now discussed, to put it in a nutshell. So these are the 5 simple steps which exist. The first thing is that Salesforce user sends an agreement, that is on clicking of the button, and the customer receives the agreement with the service order details, and the customer can accept or decline the agreement. So all these first 3 steps, it gets initiated from Salesforce, but it passes through the customer through DocuSign. And the moment the customer either accepts or declines, the same thing will be reflected in the Salesforce record. And the Salesforce Connect feature, which we discussed in the previous slide, helps us to achieve this updation of the status. And to get back, if at all the customer has signed, a signed record or signed agreement will always be tied up to the Salesforce record. So if at all we want to come back at any point of time to see whether the customer signed agreement, it's always available in Salesforce. So the same workflow which we just now discussed, to put it in a pictorial way, the Salesforce user initiates the process by clicking send contract via DocuSign button. It reaches the customer through DocuSign Connect. Well, we call in the picture, we are saying it as an envelope for approval. So in DocuSign terminology, the email is called as an envelope. An envelope record will be stored inside the DocuSign application. The same thing can be either accepted or declined by the customer, and it will be updated accordingly in the Salesforce record. So we have discussed all these things from an aircraft interior design perspective, and as I said earlier, it can be correlated for many different domains. To name a few, a book publishing industry. For example, there will be some use cases for a self-publishing company. It's important to get an approval from the author on the cover image or the interior pricing, so a payment plan. So there are a lot of different ways, different features wherein a customer requirement or customer approval is important. So we can introduce DocuSign here as well, and also the healthcare products. So even though we have the product, healthcare product, but depending on the customer requirement, there will be a certain degree of customization always existing. So even here also we can include DocuSign. So the bottom line is, so wherever a customization is required on the end product, we can implement DocuSign. That's what it says.
So, Srini, thank you for such a wonderful and informative session. It was a pleasure to have you on board. So, folks, now we are ready to address your questions. Feel free to shoot your questions. You may type in your question using the question feature on GoToWebinar. So we have the first question, how to track DocuSign's document status in Salesforce?
Well, yeah. So the moment a Salesforce user actually sends the document or agreement to the customer, a Salesforce DocuSign status is one of the objects which is provided by DocuSign itself upon installation. So you need to add that particular object as a related list in the corresponding, the parent object where you have sent the agreement. So the moment you send an agreement, a record is created in that DocuSign status or DocuSign list. So which always will be mentioning or notifying about the different statuses. For example, when the Salesforce user first sends an agreement, the DocuSign status record will update its status as sent. Then when he has successfully reached the customer, it says as delivered. And if at all he has accepted or declined it, the record will get updated automatically with the current status.
I hope that was a convincing. So we have a second question. Does DocuSign keep a copy of the contract at all?
Well, it actually helps. It's a kind of mediator in between the SalesForce and the customer. It does hold a copy of an envelope, but not the signed agreement as such. So the signed agreement or the decline agreement will either be with the customer or with the SalesForce. And the envelope, but we'll be always having the envelope address getting stored in the DocuSign.
So we'll move on to our third question. Can we send DocuSign agreement from any SalesForce object?
Yes, we can do that. As I've said, during installation, we have a certain set of objects built in, which the DocuSign provides the tie-up with these objects. For example, contact, lead, opportunity, where you can straight away use the DocuSign buttons. But usually our requirement ends up, or our customization in Salesforce will be such that we'll end up having a lot of custom objects. And DocuSign does expose provides a lot of Visualforce pages and Apex classes to achieve the same feature in any custom button. So the answer is yes, we can do that.
Okay, moving on to the next question. What are the different states for DocuSign email sent?
Yes, as answering the first question, we have a different statuses like sent. Upon the first status will be sent, and then once it's been received by the customer, it changes to delivered, and then accepted, or sorry, completed or declined. So these are different states we have.
Okay, can you explain more about branding?
Well, so branding is an important feature inside a DocuSign application. So branding defines the way in which, or it governs the way in which your email content has to look like. For example, you want certain set of images to be a part of an email content, or you want some formatting to be done, or you want some hyperlinks to direct the customer to read before signing. So all these things it's a customization which you have to do, and branding is the one which defines the email content looks like.
So Sri, the last question for the day. In DocuSign, emails that are sent to the customer, what level of customization in email content is possible?
Well, again, this is related to a brand in DocuSign. We have an option, or not an option, it's a part of the brand, is an email resource file. So the email content will be governed by this email resource file. It's an XML file wherein it provides a lot of customization. So one of the limitations which DocuSign has is it doesn't accept the dynamic images being a part of an email. So this is one of the questions which we have posted in the last week Dreamforce session, and the DocuSign team is working on that. Salesforce again. Well,
we have one more question. Would this product address HIPAA or privacy concerns in any way?
Well, so the DocuSign doesn't hold, it's just a kind of an envelope only will be existing from the DocuSign perspective. So the agreement will either be either with the Salesforce or with the customer. So I don't think there will be any privacy concerns in that regard.
Okay, so one more question from, okay, I have already DocuSign account, then I need to install DocuSign app in Salesforce again.
Well, you really don't have to do that, provided you will be able to, the DocuSign account, if at all you have an account, it's a matter of adding you as an user in that particular integration. For example, it's important that Salesforce users need to be a part of that DocuSign console as well. So you can reuse that.
Okay. So one more question. What are the main advantages of DocuSign over their competitors?
Right. So the primary advantages is the level of customization the DocuSign provides. For example, most of the features are available out of the box with the DocuSign, and also the primary interaction with the customers is going to be the email content, right? So, and it provides the customization at email resource file level itself. So at the very ground root level, the XML file which actually governs the email. So the customization is possible up to that level as well. So these are the few advantages which we have over for the DocuSign.
So folks, I guess we are running out of time, so we'll wrap it up. Thanks a lot, Srini, and thank you folks for your precious time. Any more queries, any more questions will be taken offline. So you can also reach us at our social media, or you can mail us at services@suyati.com. A very small request, we would like to ask each of you to remain with us a few moments longer and complete our feedback form. So once again, thanking you all for your time. Have a great day.